and Tomato came to us from the North Coast Marine Mammal Center in Crescent City, California. They were both wild animals that stranded and were deemed non-releasable for various reasons unique to them.
At the North Coast Marine Mammal Center, our purpose for being here is to rescue, rehabilitate, and release all these animals. Our hotline received a call about a seal that was on one of the boat ramps in our harbor. And I was actually the one that responded to this call, and when I got there, Tomato was about a 4-month-old Pacific Harbor seal right near the water line on the ramp, and there was a boat at the top of the ramp. It was a traffic area, and he was very obviously injured. He had a couple of different lacerations. He had puncture wounds. His whole face was swollen, a very nasty looking wound to one of his eyes, and it was just a really dangerous place for him to be. So I actually just swept him up right then and there, wrapped him up in my sweatshirt, and brought him into the North Coast Marine Mammal Center.
We got the initial phone call about Ravioli on March 14th of 2017. At that point, our intern, another volunteer, and myself went down to assess. And we got to the beach, and she was a nice, healthy, day-old harbor seal pup just laying on the beach waiting for Mom, who was probably out foraging. Ravioli was on a 72-hour watch. At that point, a family had picked her up, and the decision was made that she needed to be brought in to the facility. When Ravioli first came to us, she couldn't regulate her blood sugar and her temperature. She had some seizures, and as time went on, we realized she had neurological troubles. She had trouble with balancing, with diving. So between our doctor and the National Marine Fisheries Service, she was deemed unreleasable.
Training center, their goal is to fatten these young animals up, get them healthy, release them out into the ocean with a cushion for if they can't find fish right away, they have to remember how to do things. They have that fat reserve. So our little ones came to us with that fat reserve. So they had to get down to a working healthy weight and then learn how to eat fish from us. They'd been eating the fish out of the water, and so just hand feeding them and then introducing all of the aspects of training, our whistle bridge, our target poles, the idea of starting and stopping a session, all of those things. They've just come so far in learning how to learn.
A lot of times, especially when you get an animal from another zoo or aquarium, they already know what training is and what sort of the environment is, and they're used to everything. These guys really didn't have a chance to get used to any of that because they did come from the stranding center. That's a very different situation for them. So it does take a little bit longer. So they did go through a standard 30-day quarantine that any new animal would go through. And then we just sort of had to start from the beginning while they were in that quarantine. They needed to learn their name. They needed to learn to eat from us, as Allison mentioned. They were just being tossed food in the water, which is what you want to do at a stranding center so animals don't come to humans. But that works against us here. So they had to learn even the basic things that most animals would already know when they come here. So it definitely was a longer process for Ravioli and Tomato than for some of the other animals we have here.
So when we get new animals and we want to work them into meeting our resident animals, we can do that through different ways. They can obviously smell and hear each other pretty much no matter where they are. These animals have great senses of smell. And then we introduce a gate so they actually have what we call visual access to each other too. They can see this new animal, they can interact with the new animal. So we can put that howdy gate into kind of an opening between where they're living and out in the exhibit. And so the animals can see each other, smell each other, interact. Yesterday, Tomato and Porter were saying hi to each other through gates.
So they've all had a bit of interaction through that howdy gate already. So what we're going to do when they go out on exhibit is that we're going to take most of the animals off exhibit and then put Ravi and Tomato out there with Squirt, our female sea lion. And because she is blind, it's really easy to just leave her out there. We're not concerned at all that she's going to bother them when they transition to the exhibit. She's been out there with very small and very new animals in the past, and we haven't had any sort of concerns with her whatsoever. So she can sort of show them around and get them used to the exhibit, and then slowly, one by one, the other animals will be reintroduced. Typically it's a couple days apart just to sort of give everybody a chance to meet each other, get comfortable with each other before we change something else new and big. So it'll definitely be a process for them, but they've had so much interaction through that howdy gate already that we're expecting no problems, and it should be pretty smooth sailing for all of them.
just looking at our North Pacific exhibit, our rescued animals now outweigh the animals that are born in a zoo or an aquarium setting. So having 4 rescues, I think, really teaches us how to deal with them as individuals and as a species. So harbor seals are pretty skittish and can stay away from humans, but those that were rescued very young and got used to people very young are definitely going to be deemed non-releasable and live in an aquarium like this. So having Porter as a rescue, who's a very unique animal, he's so smart, he's so great at training, he is just such a great animal to work with and to teach people with how great harbor seals are. And then you look at Siku, who's a little bit more standoffish. These guys who came from the wild just kind of really shows you what they're facing in the wild and what we can do to help them. So these guys, both of them were really just from uneducated people. We need to get the message out to leave the pups alone, to keep your dogs on a leash, to make sure you're respecting their space. So I think we have the biggest sign for people to read. Just look at these animals and think about what you can do to help the harbor seals in the wild.
They each have such unique individual messages, but they're all important messages, and that's something we're hoping to convey by having them as part of our family here.